There's a lot of conversations being had now. Our parents' generation was a little bit different, where it was like, if there was a clear path. It was like, if you do go to college and you do get a degree, you will statistically have a much better chance of succeeding. And now I feel like that is not necessarily true anymore with rising, cost of college degrees. And then the fact that almost everybody has one entering into the, career field, and, salaries are down, schooling is up, debt is high. And it's no longer like the common, and all of these tech companies are even saying like, oh, you don't have to have a college degree to work here. What are your thoughts on that, on college as a whole, and in terms of like specifically related to how your experience was?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's a really timely question, because popular or unpopular opinion, I'll give a bit of a controversial answer because it's somewhat hypocritical. For me, I would do it 100 times over. It was one of the best decisions of my life, one of the best experiences of my life. I'm a very proud Terrapin. Like, I loved Maryland. I am proud of like what Kevin Plank has done with Under Armour. I'm proud that, Jim Henson and the Muppets came out of there, right? Like there's the guy that founded Oculus. Went, right? So like there's a level of
loyalty,
affinity,
family almost.
And the best relationships of my life, and some of my childhood relationships, my college relationships, my friendships that ground me and really shaped me in a lot of ways, came through and from and by that experience. Do I think it is required to get a salaried position? No. And why I say somewhat controversial is like, maybe not obviously, but I'm very involved in Web3 and transmedia as well, right? And to me, it's just iteration of the internet. I don't look at it as isolated or independent. I don't look at it as hype or siloed. I look at it as technology servicing an economy and an ecosystem that allows for culture and commerce to collide, right? And community. So when I look at the decentralization of things, it's institutions, it's corporate America, it's academics, it's marriage, and a lot of things that have really shape-shifted in our generation, and we're watching the world change right before our eyes. So when you ask, is college for everyone, or would I recommend it? I think it's incredibly personal for a couple reasons. One is financial, and I was fortunate to have like some help, get loans, honestly have been working my whole life. So if I did not have the luxury, and we were very like middle class, we were not affluent. But going to an out of state school, it was not a cost, right?
Sure.
But that was also a deterrent as to why I didn't go for MBA and then PhD and all of these things that growing up, no one put it on me, but I wanted to be. Learning was so important to me. I thought I needed all of these like badges of honor and certificates.
This proves that you learned something.
And so I think your why is always the most important driving force. So for me, yes, it was the right decision and it was the right college. I might not have said that if it wasn't the right university choice or city choice even, right? DC was a really big part of my life, to where when people asked where I was from, I would forget I would be like, Massachusetts. Like I would forget because it was such formative years. And I never really identified with Boston because while I love the city and where I come from, it is this like hyper educated, hyper liberal, apparently very progressive OG city, but it's actually pretty racist and compartmentalized when you break down how the communities operate in the actual city. Which I don't align with, which is why I love New York, which is why I love DC. Even LA, while it's very cut up, there's still a lot of everything, right? But to summarize, I think because there's a decentralization and deinstitutionalization, I don't think it is the right financial decision for most people. I also think that we as a society and as shepherds of the space owe more alternative education systems, because the problem is a lot of people then glorify not going to college that are not enterprising or entrepreneurial or don't have the tools or resources. And then they're just stuck. And so the skills that I learned in college had nothing to do with communication studies or minoring in socio-behavioral or English or Spanish or Edward Bernays PR to understand the psychology of marketing. It was the community I built. It was the life skills I built. It was the independence that I fostered. So a lot of my journey now, both within the industries that I've existed in across 7 different categories of culture and in my new endeavor, is actually very rooted in education, but it's in revolutionizing education in ways that also service our learning styles. Because most people don't learn in the format
100%, yeah.
that school gives us. But I don't think most leaders and educators or professors actually understand how to do situational education the way we learn situational leadership.
Totally.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Really, the answer is just it's nuanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like every situation is going to be different.
Not for everybody.
Depends on what you want to do. It depends on where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that I think that at this point we've basically blown up the old school narrative of like you cannot achieve this without
literally the old school.
right. Literally. And so now it's become more of like no, pretty much you can do whatever you want to do at this point. Like, unless you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, like you can do it without a degree. You know what I mean? And obviously a few other, you know, segments of
it's a nice
studies. Sure. Yeah. But then I think the intention and what you said, I thought was really important. And if I ever went that path, it definitely would have been the most top of mind for me, which is the relationships. Right. Because when you go to a place like that where there's actual things happening, you know, and you're not just going to like the local community college to like get your AA, you know, it's just like, what are you doing this for? What's the intention? What's the purpose behind it? Because going out of state to a different school in a big area and meeting all these people, you know, like how many of those people have you done business with? Have you worked with? Have you had community with outside of the realm of just going to college with them? You know what I mean?
Well, and I would just add to that there's vocational skill sets too, right? So like there are trades that you need to go learn, but it doesn't have to be at a university or an Ivy League.
Sure.
So it's where do we access academia and education and legitimate information?
Yeah.
Because previously the disparity in access to education, information, or wealth for especially, you know, gender equity, diversity, socioeconomics was access, like actual, like, you had to have a certain level of, you know, wealth to even have a computer to Google things, right?
Right.
And so now I think we're in the attention economy where there's such a saturation of information that it's not that there's not enough access to learn or information. It's that it's not curated or filtered or vetted.
Yeah.
So we don't know the quality of what we're learning because Wikipedia is not where you're going to get your makeshift degree.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.